The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Hello and welcome to the Epic Love Show, episode 108, featuring a very special guest I'm so excited for, CF Warrior and American Ninja, Amber Dawkins, coming up in just a minute here. Stick around. I'm your host, Travis Suit, and I believe one of the most important and valuable gifts that you can give yourself is love. And I believe sharing the inspiring stories of how we persevere through adversity is really important to the world today. And your journey to become inspired, if you're listening wherever you are, tuning in the universe out there, thank you for listening. Your journey to become more inspired starts right now. The Epic Love Show is brought to you by the Piper's Angels Foundation for Cystic Fibrosis. You can learn more about our mission and impact at pipersangels.org. We are live each week on Facebook and on YouTube, and you can check us out on iHeartRadio, Pandora, and Spotify after the show if you want to listen to the show as a podcast on playback. And thank you for all of our epic lovers out there bringing your love to the world, tuning in each week and providing such great feedback and so much love. The show continues to grow. If you haven't yet, please go on to our YouTube channel and subscribe and share the show. Sharing is caring, folks, so please share the show with your friends and family. And every week joining us in studio, the man himself, our sound and video engineer. Ladies and gentlemen, hailing from the other side of the table with me here, Jason.
It's not too far. What happened to the Epic Jokester? I totally lost my title. I got denounced.
I wanted to, you're getting to that Madonna level where you just need the name. Jason.
All right. Let's Vogue. No. So, as I said, I think the most powerful thing we have is laughter. And I'm very excited to have an American Ninja Warrior on the show tonight. Mm-hmm. So I actually did some research and found some ninja jokes.
Oh, all right. Let's hear it.
So once we bring Amber on, we'll have to find out how I did. It's like a joke jury here. So I'll only do two. I mean, there's shorter jokes, but I'll only keep it to two. So 3 ninjas walked into a bar, but you would never know.
I love it.
I know. So so I'll do the one that I had here. I typed ninjas into thesaurus.com.
Mm-hmm.
It said ninjas cannot be found. Well played, ninjas.
Well played. Good ones. That was awesome. Thanks, Jason.
You're welcome.
Oh, man. I love starting the show off with a good laugh, a good belly laugh. It's good medicine for the soul. Well, without further ado, this week's featured guest is Amber Dawkins. Amber, welcome to the show. Ladies and gentlemen, give Amber a big round of applause.
Oh, we're going right now.
Amber, you're on mute. Oh, there it is. Okay, great. We've got you now. Hello, Amber.
Hi.
Welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you. So for everybody out there listening, for the millions and billions around the world and in the universe tonight, Amber is a lover of all things Kansas City. And as a full-time photographer, she spends her weekdays photographing listings for real estate agents, updating headshots for professionals, creating marketing imagery for small businesses, and freelancing for local magazines. On the weekends, you'll find her at Kansas City's most recognizable parks and landmarks, shooting family and senior portraits. She is also a former contributor and current executive team member of the Kansas City Mom Collective. And in late March, Amber married her best friend, Jerry, in a pandemic-friendly wedding, and now they live in the happy chaos that comes with a newly blended family of 5 children. Holy cow. And she is one of the most recent America Ninja Warriors.
Yay!
It takes a ninja warrior to balance a family of 5 blended children like that too.
Yeah, there's a lot on my plate at the moment, but like I said, it's all happy chaos.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule and committing a little bit of time to share your story. And I've had so many comments leading up to the show. People really excited. I've been getting text messages, and I know there's a lot of people out there who are excited about getting to meet you on this virtual space and hear your story. So
good. Well, I'm excited to be here.
Not as excited as I am.
Jason, fired up. And we got to give Jason credit. He is the one who discovered you. And
not discovered her. I discovered her on TV. Okay.
Yeah, for the show.
I was gonna say I can't take all the credit here. I'm sure she did some training to be able to be on TV.
Jason saw you training at the gym, and he was like, "Amber, you've got to do it." No, so thank you so much. Well, we have we have something in common in relationship to cystic fibrosis. So, Piper's Angels Foundation was created by families fighting for other CF families because of my daughter's diagnosis, my older sister's diagnosis, and you were also diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. So can you tell us a little bit about where that story with CF begins?
Yeah, my CF story begins at birth. Actually, I was born with an intestinal blockage, and that can be a sign of cystic fibrosis. So after I was transferred to Children's Mercy Hospital and had surgery to fix the blockage, they went ahead and did a sweat test and diagnosed me with cystic fibrosis. So right. I was not very old at all when this journey started for me.
And that's a pretty common, that's one of the common ways that children or babies, infants with cystic fibrosis are diagnosed, right? That the intestinal blockage.
Yeah, it's a pretty common thing. Cystic fibrosis is known as a respiratory disease, and it is. Obviously, the respiratory symptoms are the biggest thing that we battle, but digestive systems are heavily impacted too. And mine gave me a lot of issues as a child. It was probably my main symptom growing up, actually. I had more digestive complications than respiratory.
And so how did that affect you, like in your childhood? What was the experience like growing up? And do you remember, were there some key times when, it really became a challenge for you as a child?
I had a pretty relatively stable childhood with cystic fibrosis, especially compared to many. I definitely had a lot of maintenance to do, a lot of medications and breathing treatments. And my parents were really good about keeping me on that and making sure that I was consistent with my routines. Actually, they started giving me digestive enzymes when I was only 3 weeks old. So they had to break open the little crayon capsules and count out 15 of the tiny little enzyme balls and put those in a spoonful of applesauce for me. So I was eating solid foods at only 3 weeks old in order to take my medicine. And I've always joked that it's probably the reason I love food so much is I started on solid foods at such a young age. So I had the medication, the pills, inhalers, and breathing treatments. When I was a little bit older, the airway clearance vest came into play. And so I did my vest and I did my nebulized breathing treatments every night. My mom would actually sit with me most nights and we would play video games while I did them. So she was a key part of making that more of something that I could look forward to, something that was a part of my life instead of stopping life to do my treatments. So when I think back on childhood, I think of a lot of that. I think of the routines and the consistency with the medications and the breathing treatments. Obviously going to the CF clinic every few months and getting those checkups and getting PFTs and lab work done. But I didn't have really a whole lot of hospital stays as a child. As a baby, I had the initial surgery, my intestinal blockage, and then at 18 months had another surgery to remove adhesions from the first blockage. So those were really my 2 biggest hospital stays as a young child. And then things were pretty stable for the rest of my childhood, I was really involved in a lot of different things. Kind of had the mentality that I was just going to live the life that I wanted and take CF along for the ride. I was just going to drag it along and be active and be happy and be out there. And it really wasn't until I was a teenager that I had my first kind of more serious complication. And for many with CF, it's less than they deal with. But for me, it was the biggest thing I dealt with so far. I had a recurring lung infection, Pseudomonas, kept coming back, and they decided to treat it with home IVs. So I had a PICC line that went in at my elbow, and the line goes in and around your shoulder and down your neck into the tip of your heart to deliver the medication right where it needs to be. And I did an hour and a half of IV drip in the morning and an hour and a half of IV drip at night. And I went to school with this PICC line. And for me, it was just, man, that's so much more than breathing treatments and so much more than a handful of pills. And it kind of hit me that this, for so many people, is such a serious and impactful disease. And it is for anybody who has it. But I was suddenly seeing more of the harder and more intense parts of the disease. And I just remember thinking that, you know, at any time you can get a lung infection that just takes hold, and you can get a bacteria that causes irreversible damage. And it did affect me a little bit, I think. And I got past the home IVs, and my lung functions rebounded, and I kicked it and everything was fine. But it definitely gave me some pause there to think about how serious this really is and what the future might hold for me.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And, you know, that sounds familiar to me because when Piper was 8, she had a really rough year, and it was actually the same because of a Pseudomonas infection. And she was really underweight, just the skin, you know, the frailest and most, you know, sickly she'd ever really looked. And she ended up with 2 long hospitalizations that year, 6 weeks and 2 weeks. And that was that point, that same moment for me, where it was like, here we are, a family trying to juggle work schedules and family visiting, and, you know, and seeing her in that hospital bed for, you know, week after week after week. And that was the turning point for me and for our family, where it really showed us that there are a lot of families out there who this is really challenging for, you know, and you know, we're very fortunate. We have a big family and we have a lot of support, but that was really the point for us where we decided to create Piper's Angels Foundation for that reason. So, so when you were going through that experience, I'm just curious, because isolation is such a big part of the CF journey, not being able to be around other people with CF in person, at least. Were you able to make friends you know, as a teenager or, you know, growing up with other people with CF, or did you ever make that contact, or was there ever that first friend with CF that you met?
I actually, for a while as a teenager, I got onto some CF forums, chat groups, things like that. That was really my first step out into connecting with other people with CF. I know when I was a young child, there were support groups for parents, and all the CF kids would play together. And then quickly, I think people realized this is not a great idea. And so those changed. And we no longer had the support groups with all the CF kids playing together while their parents were in the support group. But when I was getting onto the forums, there were some chat groups, forums. This may have even, I think this was even pre-Facebook, really. Not a lot going on there for me. But I didn't really connect with anyone, I think because at that point in time, I still needed to keep it a little bit at a distance. I was probably 16 or 17, and I was seeing post after post of these older teenagers and young adults, sometimes mid to early 20s, their accounts were being taken over by their parents and turned into memorial accounts because they hadn't made it. And I just struggled with that so much, wondering why I was doing so well and had always done so well. And here were these people with the same disease, the same mutation. I'm homozygous Delta F508. It's the most severe, it's the most common. And I didn't understand why their stories were so different than mine. So I didn't do a lot of connecting with other CF people at that point. I would say the first family that I really connected with came later when I was teaching. Katie, if you're watching. Katie was a student at the school that I was teaching at. And she was initially assigned to be in my classroom, but we actually had to make a change because it probably wouldn't be a great idea for a CF student to be in a CF teacher's class. So she got moved into another 6th grade classroom, but I was aware she had CF, she was aware that I had CF, and we would sometimes just chat at a distance after school, and we ended up staying in touch for years and years, and now Katie's an adult and we are still in touch. We text and we FaceTime, and I keep up on her life, and she's been just almost like a little sister, like a little CF sister. And it's been so great to watch her grow up and to have that connection with somebody else that has CF, even though we have some years of distance between us. The bond to somebody else that has CF is just instant because they know so much more about what you're going through than anybody else.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, thank you for sharing that about Katie. And hello, Katie, if you're out there somewhere. So cool. So just curious, because of the most recent adventure you took with American Ninja Warrior, were you athletic growing up? Did you play sports?
Yeah, I was pretty active. I wouldn't consider myself a serious athlete, but I did gymnastics for a little while, then transitioned into martial arts, stopped that to do cheerleading in high school, and then finished out high school on the diving team. So I was definitely always active. I had something going on. I never trained seriously for anything, but I always was involved in something. And I think that was really good for me with CF for a couple of reasons. It gave me natural airway clearance. The more active you are, the harder your lungs are working. That's just another layer of treatments that you can do. And it also gave me these communities of people that I had something in common with. I'm very social. I think I test like 93% on the extroverted scale, which is crazy high. And it just gave me more people to interact with, more people in my life to love me, more people for me to love. And that support is so important in life in general. But when you're especially dealing with something like cystic fibrosis or something else, the more people that you have in your village, in your community, the better. And so being involved in all these activities gave me such a wide network of support and friends.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I've definitely seen from a lot of the families that we've met in the cystic fibrosis community that the children who play sports and are active, without a doubt, 100% have healthier lungs, healthier bodies. They're stronger, their bone density. There's so many factors that contributes to, and it really should be mandated, in some form or fashion. I mean, it should be one of the prescriptions, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, because of the recent pandemic and COVID, how has that affected your family or your life or, kind of your schedule or?
Yeah, well, it was a pretty quick shutdown. I actually had started distancing myself a little bit in February, even before it was mandated here. March was when things in Kansas City shut down. And I had already been isolated for almost a month at that point. If I needed to get gas, I was wearing gloves at the gas pump. I knew that it was coming this way, and I knew that it was scary. It's scary for anybody, but for somebody with a chronic respiratory condition, really scary. So I stopped training at the Ninja Gym, and it was an interesting time for me because I had just gotten married and was moving into a new house.
Congratulations.
Thank you. With a new husband and 4 new stepchildren and my own child. And so those first few months of quarantine, we actually just stayed in and unpacked and settled into a new home and a new family dynamic. And at the time, it didn't really occur to me how much I was actually missing in being active, getting to the ninja gym and training, and how much I was missing that community too. That, man, Apex Climbing Gym is one of my happy places. I walk in there and even the smell of the chalk just does something for me. I love the people there and I love the experiences there. And it took a few months before I realized how much I was really missing that, that community and the time and the ability to get out there and train and be active. I think it was affecting me physically and emotionally at the same time.
And you weren't enjoying being inundated by 5 children every day, all day, for 7 days a week, 24/7? No?
Actually, they have given me and Oliver something that I always dreamed of. I always wanted more than one child. I never planned on just having an only child, and I never wanted Oliver to miss the experience of siblings. So it can be loud and crazy, and there are a whole lot more sibling fights than I expected. They just fight about everything. But that's part of being a parent to multiple children. It's part of being a sibling. It's part of that whole experience that we wouldn't be getting otherwise. So even though sometimes I'm exhausted and I fall into bed at night and feel like I've just hosted a party when it was really a day at home with my family, I really think that the blessings that we're getting out of it and the experiences that Oliver are getting, it's going to change his life in such a profound and important way.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. It's so special when you bring, I love kids. I really do. Like, I love being a dad and I love kids. And it's just so much fun to me, because we went through it, right? I mean, that's how I look at it. I remember being that age, and I remember the sibling rivalry I was in with my sister. And it's kind of nice. I think there's a little bit of, there's a little trick to it, but if you can stay out of the drama triangle, right, and you're not the persecutor, you're not the victim or the hero, and you can kind of just observe it and stay neutral, sometimes you got to step in, but it's kind of entertaining. Turn them loose sometimes on each other.
Yeah.
But, so it's not easy, or necessarily it can be challenging to have a child being somebody with cystic fibrosis, being a woman with cystic fibrosis. So how did that occur?
Yeah. When I told my doctor that I wanted to have kids, he was on board. The whole team was on board. My lung functions were high and my weight was good. And he said, you are going to have no problems carrying a baby. And he said, I will tell you that your problems are going to start when that baby's born. And you are exhausted and you are giving your everything to the baby, and you aren't doing your treatments because you're caught up in motherhood, and you aren't sleeping as well as you should because what new mom sleeps. And he was 100% right. It did take me a couple of rounds of IUI to get pregnant. So we went through fertility treatments, and that was hard. I remember, just month after month of negative pregnancy tests and crying in the aisles of Target every time I saw a pregnant woman, wondering if I was ever going to get that experience. And then once I got pregnant, man, I'm one of those people that I could have been pregnant forever. I loved every single part of it. I remember walking around at school, looking at my belly, thinking, he's right here with me. Like, he's here all the time. And I remember thinking, when I have him, he's not going to be here with me all the time. So the pregnancy itself really was pretty easy. But afterward, the doctor's predictions were completely accurate. That was when my routines started getting a little less routine, and I wasn't sleeping as well. I was getting sick more often, staying sick longer. I was kind of seeing all of that in those first few years of motherhood.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on having the daring and the courage and to bring a beautiful gift of love into the world and to brave that with cystic fibrosis. I know that's not an easy choice, and that's a big commitment. So, and you're obviously an amazing mama. So congratulations for sure.
Thanks so much.
Absolutely. So based on your bio, it seems like you're a pretty big fan of Kansas City.
Yes.
How long have you lived there?
I was born in a suburb of Kansas City and have been here my whole life, except for a few years when I went to college in Nashville.
Oh, college in Nashville. That sounds
Yeah.
fun. That could
Yeah,
be a
it
whole
was.
other
It
show.
was. What was that?
I said that could be a whole other show, I'm sure.
It could be.
We'll have you back for round 2 next time. The Amber Dawkins episode, CF Ninja Warrior College in Nashville episode.
Yes. Although, honestly, I didn't take advantage of it the way that I should have. I went back a couple of years ago and realized how many experiences I should have had as a college student in Nashville and didn't.
There
I
was
did not
no
take
dancing on the trip back. That was
Yeah.
So in Kansas City, you are a professional photographer, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And where did you get introduced to photography? What inspired you to get behind the camera?
Actually, I started out doing a little bit of modeling in high school and college, and we were not always thrilled with the comp card pictures that I would get back. The comp card is kind of like a model's business card that you use to give to agencies and book work. And my mom and I ended up buying a camera and started kind of messing around. She was actually behind the camera taking pictures of me, and we were trying to figure out how to edit them, and we were trying to figure out the best angles. And through that, I just kind of fell in love with being on the other side of the camera and realized I liked that a lot more. And so I started doing photography with my mom as a hobby on the weekends. I was a teacher for 8 years and just took pictures word of mouth for people, mostly family portraits, pictures of little kids. And it just grew quickly. And after about 8 or 9 years, I had gotten to the point where my weekend hobby was now, and almost every night of the week, I needed to do something, whether it was edit pictures or respond to emails or deliver pictures. And I felt like I wasn't doing photography or teaching as well as I wanted to because I was splitting my time and my effort. And so I quit. I left the district. It was a huge change. It was a huge leap of faith, and it was hard. I had such a passion for teaching. I loved the kids. I loved the classroom, and it was hard for me to make the change. But I also knew that being a photographer and a mom and having CF and managing my health and all of that was going to be better for me in the end than teaching. As a photographer, I get to set my own schedule. I can book some light days if I'm feeling run down and I know that I need to. I'm exposed to less. Obviously, classroom exposure has been a very hot topic this year. But I was sick more often when I was teaching. And so I made the leap and turned a hobby into a full-time career. And I've been doing this full-time for 4 years now. I've expanded beyond just portraits. Now I do real estate listings, corporate headshots, branding for small businesses. I've kind of diversified and made a career of it.
You're like a Renaissance woman. I have to say, CF Ninja Warrior actually doesn't really do you justice. It should be
CF Renaissance woman, huh?
Yeah, it should be CF entrepreneur, model, mama, photographer, Ninja Warrior.
Okay, I'll see if I can squeeze it all in the Instagram handle.
Yeah, I think we just had a little look on the audio radar there.
Is that happening on mine?
You're back. Yay. All right. Perfect. So we keep rolling like that. So,
Okay.
I was going to say we could actually call her CF Ninja Photographer.
yeah, exactly.
There we go. Does that mean that I have to take pictures incognito?
Yeah.
I liked your ninja jokes, by the way, Jason.
Thank you.
I chuckled.
Thank you. All right.
They were solid.
I feel better now.
So what's the hardest part about being a photographer?
At the moment, it is finding the time that I need to run a business. With the pandemic especially, I am dedicating my Mondays and Tuesdays to virtual school. We've got kiddos that are in hybrid, that are full virtual, and my own son is doing a homeschool virtual program. So I am dedicated exclusively to that on Mondays and Tuesdays, which means I am cramming all of my photo shoots into Wednesdays and Thursdays, and then working sometimes like 16-hour days, staying up, editing. I was delivering photos at like 1 a.m. on Friday night a couple weeks ago, and one of my agents felt bad for me and gave me a tip. And I was like, it's the only time that I have to work is late at night. And so that has been hard lately, but still, you know, this too shall pass. We are not always going to be in a pandemic, and someday I will have a little bit more balance in my work schedule. And I know that everybody is feeling that to some degree right now anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like we're, you know, when you're talking about the kids and there's like, you know, one kid's hybrid, one kid's virtual, it sounds like we're actually in the future.
Right? Yeah. Man, I don't think anybody ever saw this coming this quickly.
Right?
Yeah.
So what would you say is one of your favorite moments ever, you know, behind the camera, and the moment happened and, you know, that was the moment you fell in love with being a photographer?
Okay. Well, I fell in love with it long before this story, but this is the story. This is the one I always think of and I always tell. One of my favorite things about being a photographer is that you never know what you're going to walk into. I have just the widest range of experiences week to week, and it is so much fun to do all these different things, to be in a multi-million-dollar home by yourself because the builder just gave you the keys and left, and you just get to walk around thinking, oh my goodness, like I'm in this place and I'm photographing this, and to have moments with newborn babies and their families, and to catch the raw emotion of those shoots. I mean, everything is so different. And one of my very favorite ones, I was actually doing a photo shoot for a commercial real estate agent who is a former NFL player. He used to play for the Patriots. And I had a little bit of like fangirl moment when I found out who he was. And we were out taking pictures of some farmland. That's what he was selling, was this farmland. And he wanted to ride the tractor down to the pond so that I could get some pictures down by the pond. And it was too far to walk carrying all the gear. So it was a one-seater tractor, and then there was a trailer behind. And he didn't think that it was very gentlemanly to have me ride in the trailer holding all my equipment. So instead, he gave me a quick driving lesson on the tractor, and he climbed into the trailer in the back, holding all of my gear and equipment, just like this big NFL man sitting in a trailer holding all my stuff. And I drove the tractor down to the pond with this NFL player bouncing around in the back, thinking, I can't believe this is my life. I can't believe this is my job. I'm being paid to do this right now. And so that was just so cool to me.
What a classic story. That's really incredible. And we get to add now tractor driver to your incredible resume.
There you go. This Instagram handle is going to be out of control.
That's really cool. That's so funny. I can only imagine how you felt sitting in the driver's seat of the tractor, you know, like, okay, today started. Didn't know I was going to be in the tractor.
Yep. Was that me or you?
It was the universe saying it's all good. Yep. Okay, so I really want to dive into the Ninja Warrior experience. I really do. But before I go there, I'll at least take a minute because I got to ask you, this is really interesting to me, being a former contributor and executive team member of the Kansas City Mom Collective. What is that?
Oh, man, that is such an amazing group of women. There is actually a national network of what used to be just vlogs. Oh, thanks, Danny. And it started out as a blog, a place for moms to come together and share thoughts and ideas and resources on parenting and connect other moms to activities in the city and to each other. Just online support and community and network of moms. And it expanded and is now, instead of the mom's blog, it is the collective. And that, I think, just shows how much it has grown from being just a resource provider of online blog posts to truly like a whole collection of things for moms in Kansas City. we host events for moms, not a lot right now, a lot of virtual events right now. And there are play groups and there are experiences that moms are invited to come try, where local influencers for businesses that are wanting to reach the mom crowd. So I started writing for them in 2015, and I have a passion for writing. I love it, and wrote for them for many years until I kind of hit a place where I just felt like I had said everything I needed to say for the moment. And I stepped back from that writing position and then started as their photographer and started doing headshots and getting event photos, providing photos for families at events. And then just last year, I was asked to be on the executive team to kind of be a little bit of help behind the scenes in planning those events and just brainstorming ideas of how we can better serve the moms of Kansas City.
What a beautiful story. That's so cool. What a great
group. And for anybody out there, because I know you have a lot of people listening in who are not from Kansas City, the City Moms Network it's a national thing. So it's not just the Kansas City Mom Collective. There is one in Houston. There is one in Omaha. They are all over the place. So any moms out there in other cities, get plugged in.
Yeah, what a great community. The rally factor. I love to see that come together. It really makes a huge difference. We talk about it a lot in our organization, just how important that rally factor is when you come together and you co-create and build community and strengthen the fabric of a community. So cool. So the moment everybody has been waiting for. So where and how did the CF Ninja Warrior journey begin? There had to have been that first moment where it began, or the dream began to manifest.
Yeah. So it's funny because my experience with American Ninja Warrior started for many years as me sitting in my living room eating Papa John's and watching all day marathons of American Ninja Warrior on G4, which was a long time ago. I've been a fan of the show since season 1. I never in any of those moments dreamed that I might someday train for the show, much less be on the show. So that really, I don't know, sometimes I just picture like this little voice coming to me in one of those moments and saying, hey, someday you're going to be on that show. And I would have just been like, what? No way. But it really started for me in 2017. I got to attend a live course testing at Union Station when the show filmed here in Kansas City. When they set up in a city for filming, they set up the course, they have testers run the course first to see how the obstacles respond, to make changes if needed. And I had a friend that was testing, so I got to go and watch, and I got to meet a couple of the competitors. And I remember thinking, like, can just like an everyday person train and test the course? Because if they come back to Kansas City sometime, I want to do this. I know I have enough of a gymnastics background and cheerleading. I love acrobatics. I love the idea of just playing on a giant playground. So I had somebody introduce me to Alex, is who it ended up being. And Alex trains at Apex Climbing Gym and is now a coach there. And so I met up with Alex at Apex to try a few obstacles and see what it was all about. And I was able to do a couple of the obstacles my first day there. Wasn't pretty, but I did complete, the most memorable one was called Lachey Alley. Lachey is where you swing from like a monkey bar and you throw your body forward to the next monkey bar, but they can sometimes be spaced 4, 6, even 8 feet apart. So it's a pretty big swing. You throw yourself out there with your hips and then make the grab. And I was able to complete that the first day, probably just because of a little bit of that gymnastics background way from back in my childhood. And Alex said, you know, I don't think you should be training to test the course. I think you should be training to compete. I think you should actually do this. And I mentioned my extrovertedness earlier. I also have a love for adventure. And I think that those two go together a lot. And I love getting out there and trying new things. I love travel. I love being adventurous. And so I just said, why not? I'm saying yes to all things pretty much. And so I started training and really fell in love with it. And again, that goes back to the community too. It's great to complete the obstacles, to try something new, and that feeling of success when you get it. And that's wonderful. I feel like a big kid on a playground, but the community is also such a huge part of that. The ninja community as a whole, everywhere you go, it's just like family. They welcome you with open arms. They're the kindest people, the most welcoming and encouraging. I've always said, you see ninjas cheering each other on the sidelines, on the show and in local competitions. And that's not an act. These are the people that you are competing against, and yet you feel compelled and excited to support them and cheer them on from the sidelines and coach them through and celebrate with them when they complete an obstacle. It's almost like it's us versus the course, not us versus each other. So that sense of community and the kindness and the welcome feeling that the ninja community gives, I think just made this an adventure that stuck with me. It wasn't just a short-term thing. It was something that I wanted to keep doing and keep being a part of.
Awesome.
Amber, one of the things, and I think that's a phenomenal fact, and I think that's one of the things that you and I talked about on the phone was the camaraderie that the ninja community has, and I think it's phenomenal that they focus on that on the show.
Yeah.
One of the things I had a question of is, especially while you were training, and I think especially starting in 2016, 2017, you really got to see that shift towards the female ninjas. And I think, with the emergence of Casey Catanzaro and Stephanie Graff and everything like that, were there, I know you had Alex as a mentor, were there other, female mentors and stuff like that you were, that were helping you along the way? And, were there any that you were focusing on through their gain and notoriety, through the community?
Well, at my local gym, there are a couple of other women that are frequently there and training for ninja. And it's so funny because, obviously I connect with other women who do this because there are so few of us. But I also sometimes feel more intimidated because I feel like whatever they can do, I should be able to do because we are the same. And it's funny because you look at these amazing ninjas on the show, like Jessie Graff and Michelle Warnke and Alyssa Beard, and we are not the same. They are incredible athletes, and I have so much respect for their talent. But man, to see what these women can accomplish, it both intimidates you and inspires you at the same time. Because I'm so inspired to try to achieve the same athletic ninja successes that they do. But I'm also completely intimidated thinking we should be the same and we are just not.
So what was your training regimen like?
Well, there's a Wednesday night class. It is actually going on right now, but I am here because that's how much I love you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Alex.
Well, the pandemic may have a little bit of something like that too. But there's a Wednesday night class. It's an adult class, and anybody is welcome to just come in and give it a shot. And so that was really where I pushed myself the most. I also climbed on Monday nights for a while, and I would try to get to the gym a couple of times a month on Saturdays. Because of my schedule of being a mom and a photographer, I did a lot of training at home too. I have a pull-up bar that is far too dusty right now. But that's a good way to keep up your upper body strength and grip strength at home. And then actually, my husband is working on building a ninja gym in the basement. So we'll be able to pick our training back up a little bit more when that's done. He trains with me. That is how we met. We met training for American Ninja Warrior. And we'll be able to train a little bit more once that's complete, since the pandemic is just kind of raining on the gym parade at the moment.
Yeah, right. Well, that's nice. They say couples that train together stay together.
I love that. Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Mom. Love you, Mom. Yeah. So what was the buildup like to actually being on the show? Like, how are you feeling? What was the emotions that were leading up to that moment?
Well, I had applied for the show before, very, very early. Yes, Danny, I love that. Very early in my ninja experiences and didn't get the call. I just hadn't had very much training. by the time I applied in 2019, I had been to the National Ninja League World Finals twice. So I had some competition experiences under my belt. I was a little further along in my training and what I could do, but I still wasn't expecting the call, honestly. There's 100,000 people that apply every year for this show. And this year they only picked 150. So getting the call was just a complete shock. It was a mixture of excitement and utter terror because I did not feel ready. I mean, it had been 4 months since I had trained at a ninja gym, and I had been too busy blending that big family to get on my pull-up bar much. So it was a dream come true. And in some ways it felt like a dream come true at the wrong time, but beggars can't be choosers. And I was just thrilled to get the call and thrilled to get to go live out this dream that I've been training for 3 years.
Beautiful. We've got a few minutes left on the show, so it always flies by when we're having fun. I'm curious. So when you had that experience, in the whole thing, from the perspective of taking on the show and doing it, what was the most memorable moment?
I would say it was probably my first night there. We were all brought to St. Louis. There were only 150 competitors instead of the usual 600, and only one city instead of the usual 6-city tour because of the pandemic. It's a shortened season and a little bit different format. And being there and walking into this hotel after we'd all had our negative COVID tests, 2 of them to even be there checked in, you had to have 2. And man, I just remember every time waiting for the elevator, wondering who was going to be on the other side when it opened. Sometimes it was Grant McCartney, and sometimes it was Lance Pekus, and sometimes it was Jesse Graff or Michelle Warnke. And it was just I cannot believe I'm here with all of them. In a normal season, you would only be with ninjas assigned to your region. And so I remember falling asleep that night, realizing that I was under the same roof as the most legendary names in this sport and thinking how incredible that is to be there. It's not like you can just play football as a hobby and then suddenly unexpectedly find yourself on the field with Patrick Mahomes. That doesn't happen. And I felt like we had the ninja equivalent of that. I've been training for this and I've been doing this and enjoying it, but then suddenly to get this phone call and be under the same roof as the great ninjas in this sport, it was really a surreal moment.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing it. And thank you so much for taking the time and coming on the show and sharing your CF story. It's so inspiring to hear, and for people like my daughter Piper, who's a young woman, 13, with cystic fibrosis, it's really nice for people like you to be out in the world and being that role model for her. So thank you so much. And thank you, because I believe we now have a new way to introduce you as the world traveler, writer, philanthropist, tractor driver, photographer, model, mama, teacher, CF Ninja Warrior.
Okay. I like it.
I think it works. I
can't fit that in a Twitter handle or an Instagram handle. It's too long.
Well, I am so glad that you guys reached out and that I could be here. Do I have a minute to say one more thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I wanted to mention this story. It's been kind of a recurring theme that I've talked about in this journey. When I was a little girl, I was in a waiting room at a CF appointment, and my mom was there. And my mom is the one that told me this story later, I think when I was a teenager. She had seen 2 sisters there with CF. They were about 10 years older than I was, and they had healthy color in their cheeks, and they were a healthy weight, and they just seemed strong and active. And when I was born, the life expectancy of someone with CF was 20. And that was the first piece of information my parents were given about this. And I remember my mom saying that she had a lot of hope from seeing those girls in the waiting room that I wouldn't follow that same projected path as the life expectancy of 20, but that instead I would follow the path that these girls were on. They were 10 years older than me, late teens, and they were really healthy. And I've wanted to get to do that for other families ever since then. I've wanted to be the girls in the waiting room, to the kids out there with CF, and to their parents, to be that other path, that this is what it can be. This is what you're capable of with CF. This is the kind of life that you can live and the kind of dreams that you can have and fulfill, even though you've got CF. So I'm super grateful to have been here and hopefully to have a chance to make that statement and that example to those families.
Yeah, most definitely. And you absolutely have. And thank you for coming on the show and sharing your inspiring story of love through action. And look forward to having you back on the show one day. And send our love, our epic love, to your family and everybody out there in Kansas City.
I will do. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Amber. Wow, another awesome episode of the Epic Love Show. Thank you so much for everybody who's tuning in out there and all the engagement in the comments and showing the love. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. If you haven't yet, subscribe on YouTube, please. And we'll see you next time. And until then, keep promoting the positive and bring your epic love to the world.
Yeah. Spread the love all over the world. All God's people, spread the love all over the world. All over the world. All my brothers and sisters,